Alright guys, I've had a few questions locally and I've built a few of these for local guys, but I've had people asking me how to build a podium box for their demo or SPL builds just like this one. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you guys step by step how to cut it, determine what wood you want, going through the sanding and gluing process, and then ultimately adding your personal touch, whether it be staining or in this case here, I had my daughters go ahead and draw on all sides of it, and I went ahead and put polyurethane coats over it. By the way, side note, this is my new favorite piece in my whole entire build, just because it has a touch from my daughters on it. So I'll go ahead and show you guys how to do all that, and then I'll fast forward through some of the sanding and grinding and that kind of process, so you guys don't get too bored. I know some of my videos get long with stuff like that. So I will go ahead and show you how to do all that. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave a comment below. And as always, remember to subscribe to my channel. Thank you. I hope you enjoy the video. So for today, we're going to build a podium box out of this poplar board that I purchased. It's 4 inches long, 0.75 inches tall. You need to know the depth and height for when we're measuring out our radio that we want to build into it. So, some things you're going to need for sure: circular saw, sander, and router. Router only if you want to round off your edges, which I always do, I just think it looks better. And a T-square. And if you have the radio you want, this one happens to be a Kenwood X701. So what I'm going to do, so I'm going to go ahead and measure the size I want, because I know I want a base knob, which is about 1 by 1 inch. I want 3 voltmeters, one for each of my sub-amps, which is 1 by 2. So I know in addition to the size of the single DIN radio and the depth, I want to have 3 voltmeters and a base knob. Okay? So what you do is you measure it. So I know that I'm going to need about 2 inches of clearance off the back for my RCAs. I have sundown RCAs that are kind of thick. So I know I want to be probably right there, which is 9.5. I know width, I want to have space for the base knob, and I want to be able to mount the voltmeters above the radio. So I know for space here, I need to be about 10 inches. And then I know for height, I need 1 inch for each voltmeter. The radio itself is a single DIN, so I know I want to be right around 4 inches, which put me right here. It'll give me about 1.5 inches clearance after I round off everything for the volt. My box is being 9.5 by 10 by 4. Now again, here's where a lot of the mistakes happen. When you're calculating how deep you want your box to be, you got to factor in, look here, you got to factor in how thick your wood is. I know mine's 0.75 inches. So if I go ahead and say, okay, I want the faceplate in the back to be the complete size of the box, and I want to take off 1/2 inch for each side, front and back, and I want to take off 1.5 inches for the tops and bottoms. So I know the face and the back need to be 10 by 4. I know the sides need to be 8 by 2.5 inches. Again, it's 2.5 and 8 because I want 9.5, but I'm taking up 0.75 an inch on either side of it. So it needs to be 8 by 2.5. Top and bottom need to be 8 by 10. The 8 is because I know the depth I want 9.5, but I'm also doing the face is the full size and the sides are the full size, so I want to take off 1.5 inches. So you got 8 by 10. So these are the sizes I'm going to need. I need to cut two 10 by 4. I need to cut 2 8 by 2.5, and I need to cut 2 8 by 10. And then I just need to put it all together to make my podium box, and then from there we're going to go ahead and do all the finish work on it. So as you can see here, I went ahead and marked up all my cuts based on my dimensions that I want and the sizes I'm going to need to make the podium box. So I went ahead, cut everything out, and I will videotape myself cutting this. Now that I have all my pieces cut, I'm going to go ahead and sand it down, true it up, and start gluing. This will be the sides. Go ahead and do the bottom and the two face plates first. We'll need very little sanding because it should be pretty close to start with anyways. Get a nice bead going on it. I go like this, I go a little bit overboard, but I'm going to sand off excess later and I fill it in. I always try and do it with no screws if at all possible. Sometimes it's not, but I think I could get a smaller box like this with no screws. Go ahead and apply it. I always lean it off the edge a little bit. I apply it, and I go ahead and you just move over as I go with the clamps, as you see here in just a moment. You want to get it as exact as possible. If it's not 100% perfect, we'll fill it in later with wood glue. I do the two edges, and I fill in the middle last to let it dry. You probably don't need to, but I give it about an hour to dry. I go ahead and wipe off all the excess while I'm here. Should only be on the bottom. As best you can. I mean, most of it will sand off anyways as you're doing all your finish work on it. But just saves a little bit of time down the road if you don't have to sand as much. I probably sand more than I need to just because I'm a perfectionist. Alright, now it's had a chance to dry. I go through and I freehand it. I know roughly I want to have some voltmeters here, base knob on top. So I know I gotta get it a little bit off center. I know this is 4 inches tall. I know this is 4 inches tall. A din is 2 inches. So I go ahead and do it 4 inches tall. So I go 2 inches is halfway. So I go 1 to 3 inches. 1 inch to 3 inches on if you're measuring top to bottom. And then I go ahead, double check it on both sides. Yep. And I just go ahead and draw around. And then I take a ruler and I just fill in the gaps. And I have a single din, so I just use the cage. So that's what needs to slide in. So I just go ahead and I route out this piece and sand it down to where it needs to be. Now that I have everything all measured out, I'm gonna go ahead and hand route out the piece that I need to take out for the single head unit I'm gonna put in here. So I just use a hand router. I go little by little and just start it slowly. There we go, a rough estimate of how the cutout's going to go. Again, we'll have to sand this down to make it perfect, but it gives you a rough template to start. Fitment purposes, so we can finish this box off. Fits like a glove. Then you have room for your RCAs, voltmeters, lid, and then the base knob over the top, or if you want to flush mount it, you can mount it in here. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead, now I have the DIN cut out, I'm going to go ahead and glue the top piece on and let it dry. And then the last thing I'll do is I'll add a grommet, or maybe not add a grommet, I'll just round it off, and I'll add a hole for the cables. Go ahead and let it dry for a while. I'm going to fill in the gaps and sand it all down and make it all perfectly even, then I'll round it off. And then, while I'm waiting for this to dry, I like to fill in all the cracks with wood filler. I use the Elmer's stuff because it's stainable. And I go ahead and fill it all in while I'm waiting for everything else to dry, and then I sand it all down and make it perfect. Just one of those things I like to do. Not everybody does it, but for me it works well. Let that sit dry for a while the other glue is drying, and then we'll sand it down and see if it needs another round. Alright, it's had a little bit of time to dry, so now I'm going to go through, take all this off. I'm going to start sanding down all the filler I put in and making all the panels line up evenly. And then we'll go back and make sure everything is all good to go. On to the next stage. I always test my router just to make sure that it's got the right depth that I want. As you can see right here is what I tested. Perfect depth. I'm going to go around now, round off all the edges, and then I'm going to go back through and do the fine sanding as long as nothing looks out of whack. I don't have to use any filler. I always like to start at the top and go around. Alright, so now that the edges are rounded off, I'm going to go back over this really quick, all these burn stains, smooth this off with 60 grit, and then go back over it with the 120. Now if you look, it's got a beautiful grain to it, all the way around. Round it off. Looks really good. This will be all covered, so it really doesn't matter. It fits the radio, that's all that really matters. I'm going to go ahead and do the hole last, because I don't know exactly how I want to run this in my truck yet. So I'm building it for the build next year. But there'll be a hole. I usually use a step bit, just drill as big as I need. I run everything right through here, 3 RCAs. I keep my USB in the back. So I'll drill a hole probably about that big right there. But if you look, this poplar came out good. It's got beautiful grain on it. Everything looks really, really amazing. And it's solid as a rock. Alright, so this is done. Usually I would just stain it, poly it, and call it good to go. Drill the hole, call it good to go. But I want to involve my daughters a little more in my build for this upcoming season. So I'm going to go up to the house, give this to them, and have them draw on it. Whatever they want, I'll have them just doodle all over it, and then I'll go ahead and put a nice clear poly on it, and that's how I'll keep it. So hopefully they enjoy, hopefully they draw something really nice for me. Really doesn't matter, I just want my daughters to have a part in my build. Alright guys, so I had my daughters go ahead and paint this. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put a clear coat across it and call it done. I wanted to add something unique to my truck, so had my girls go ahead and paint or draw on the whole thing. Usually I use this Rust-Oleum poly, but for this I want to try this one coat Minwax. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I figured I'd give it a shot.